Welcome to the What's Our Verdict podcast, where we fashion ourselves cinematic judge and jury. My name is JJ Carter. I'm here with my co-host, Alec Burgess.
Let's get it.
We appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead and hit that follow, subscribe, like, bell notification buttons. Hit them all. Help keep up with the podcast and keep us going. So we appreciate the support. Also, tell a friend about us. Tell a family member about us. Tell a bunch of punk teenagers or preteens about us. All of those apply. We'll take them. It's the final week of July's 90 minutes or less. We're back to finally recording a podcast about an actual movie, which I'm excited about. Not just because it's my pick, but because it's a real movie, which it's been a couple weeks since we've talked about an actual movie.
No comment, because I liked a couple of those non-movies.
Yeah. But before we get too far into the movie, let's go ahead and talk about our sponsor, Manscaped. We appreciate them, as always, for sponsoring this episode and continuing to be a partner of ours. So, fellas, if you want to keep your grooming routine to be a one-and-done deal, well, the days of using the same trimmer for your face and your private parts are over, thanks to your friends at Manscaped. They've come up with the ultimate package to keep your hairs trimmed from 12 to 6. Introducing the Beard and Balls Bundle, featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 and the Beard Hedger, a trimmer for the moneymaker and another for the boys downstairs. Get 20% off plus free shipping with code THEVERDICT at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code THEVERDICT at manscaped.com. For the premium grooming experience, trust Manscaped. Look, this deal can't go wrong because I have both. Bought them separate. I did get the big package that they sent to us and to let us test and use so we could talk about it. But then I bought the beard trimmer, the beard hedger on my own because I do have a beard. And for Alec's length and some of the shorter lengths, the beard trimmer is absolutely amazing. And to their point, you're not using the same ones for two different areas that you don't really want. That kind of crossover, you don't want that. But yeah, so go check it out. You can always get that 20% off plus free shipping with code THEVERDICT at manscaped.com. Again, that's 20% off plus free shipping with the code THEVERDICT at manscaped.com. No more juggling multiple tools or dealing with subpar results. Just efficient, effective grooming whenever you need it. So go check it out. That was one of their more mild copies, and yet there's just part of it that made me squirm, like the whole using both. Because there's some dude out there right now, like, trimming his beard and his balls at the same day with the same tool. It just can't do that.
Look, I feel personally attacked right now.
I love it.
Anyways, so I'm going to steal Max's thunder. Are you ready for a haiku?
Oh, yes, I am.
It's been forever. He's lost it.
It's fair.
So here we go. I worked on this for a long time, JJ. You're going to be impressed.
I'm excited.
But I tried to keep that Matson style, right? So here's my haiku. Red hair, wild and bold. Manscaped tames the fiery mane. Smoothness now unfolds.
Nice. I love a good haiku.
Not going to do a whole poem, but there you go, Matson.
Hey, haiku works. Look, we've kept Matson around in spirit these last 3 episodes, and fuck that guy for being stuck in Hawaii.
Stuck in Hawaii, guys.
Stuck.
Yeah.
I hope his son feels better if that's who was sick. But if it's not, then they can shut up too, because they're stuck and sick in Hawaii. And if there's a place to be stuck and sick, it's Hawaii. Anyway, so let's do this. Let's talk about our movie. So it's the final week of 90 minutes or less. Like I said, we're doing Stand By Me. Oh my goodness, my mouse is doing dumb things again. It was released August 22nd, 1986. It was written by Stephen King, Reynald Gideon, and Bruce A. Evans. It was directed by Rob Reiner. It stars Will Wheaton, River Phoenix, Corey Feldman, Jerry O'Connell, Kiefer Sutherland, Casey Simasco, Gary Riley, Bradley Gregg, and Richard Dreyfuss. Oh, yeah, and John Cusack. Don't forget him. You can't forget Denny.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about a writer who recounts a childhood journey with his friends to find the body of a missing boy. That's the simplest synopsis. I mean, it's accurate, but it's very short.
It's crazy you can make a movie out of this story. Or that
Right?
even you can write a book about this story, as Stephen King did.
Yeah.
And I think at one point, didn't he say this was like one of the most accurate or his favorite adaptations of his material?
Yeah.
And it's almost the point of ludicrous, right? Because everybody, I don't know about today, but everybody's got a story like this.
Yeah.
Like, I got a story like this. I know you got like 17 stories like this. Where you're just out with your buddies going doing stupid shit. Right? Nobody involved in my story, but where you're just kind of going out with your friends, little adventure type of a deal.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure like this was like, to your point, like I'm pretty sure that this one is one that Stephen King says there's truth to this story. Like this wasn't just like an all made up story. Like this was based on, and if I remember right, and I'll have to look it up, or someone from, our listening audience, ping us, tell us, comment. But I'm pretty sure I remember reading that this one was one that Stephen King was like, a version of this happened. Like obviously not everything, and it's obviously embellished to a certain degree, especially for the movie, but the story itself had some truth to it, and and you're right. Like that's one of the things that I love the most about this movie is if you get past the heavy content and the fact that you're talking about some pretty hard lives that these boys have lived and across the board, but like the just shenanigans and ridiculousness that these kids get up to, and like the local legends that you have of like the dog and the sick balls and the, you know what I mean? Like all of that stuff like is so relatable to even, and I believe, and to your point, like it's less the same as but I still think you have kids nowadays that would grow up and go, oh, I have a similar experience in that my friends and I went and did some dumb shit. They may have been supervised by a parent or got caught while they were doing it because it was a play date, but at the same time, like they did some dumb shit, right? For me though, like the nostalgia's real because fuck, dude, I was a latchkey kid. So after school was over, I had a key around my neck for my house, and my parents were working. Like I didn't, you know what I mean? Like I didn't go home till the street lights came on. So it was like we were always out doing dumb shit, and most kids from my generation and older, like we've narrowly escaped a kidnapping attempt at least once. Like, you know what I mean? There's some wild shit. So like watching this movie is like a nostalgia trip for me. Cause I'm like, dude, this is some shit that my friends and I would do. Maybe not hike 20 fucking miles.
Yeah.
But that's a choice, not, you know what I mean? But like, we would do some dumb shit. Like we lied all the time. I'll be at Joey's, I'll be at Ryan's, and fucking didn't come home for 2 days. My parents, but none of us were where we said we were at. You know what I mean? So like, I love that aspect of this movie. And I think there's some relatability to it, regardless of your age, your generation, like how wild you and your friends got. Like you can relate to that relationship of your friends. And then even to the point of the end of the book or the end of the movie where he talks about, at 12 years old, like they never stay your friends. Like, you know what I mean? They become people you walk past in the hall. And so, which is also very true. The people I got up to some shit in junior high and elementary school at that 12-year-old age were not the same dumbasses I got up to some shit. There's a couple, but most of them were not the same dumbasses I got up to shit in high school. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, your group of friends changes real quick.
For sure. Especially in my, like where I moved in middle high school, like I had to rebuild a whole new set of friends. And then we did dumb shit here in Utah instead of in Kentucky and Tennessee or in Ohio. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, it's just so relatable and then, to take it a step further, like thankfully, I don't want to say like I had a like perfect childhood. That's not true, but I don't think anybody does. But I also didn't have I was a very blessed child. I had a very good childhood. Like I hear people talk about their childhood and I'm like, yep, I can't relate to that. Yeah. Right. I didn't have that, but I had a lot of friends that did. And so like, I really can relate to the River Phoenix character. Like in that he is always there to support his friends. He's a dick. He drive you to, but he's always really good to his boys, right? Like he's there, he'll lift them up, he takes care of them. And so like that's kind of the role that I played, only without like the shitty background of my own, right? Like because like I didn't have that, so it was easier for me to go, oh man, that sucks, I'm sorry to hear that, like what do we need to do, right? And try to cheer everybody up. So I always relate to his character quite a bit in that respect, until you get to like the campground scene where he can't relate to that one. But yeah, it's a wild.
Well, there's levels to this whole story too, right?
Sure.
So there's the kind of adventure aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the leaving to school, but different areas of school, like this growing up aspect. So hanging on to like your youth, right? And then you have the, like to your point, the, finding out who your real friends are type of a thing, and then peeling back the layers.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like all the encouragement, like, Gordy becomes a writer.
Yeah.
And why does he become a writer? Really, because Chris is pushing him and saying like, hey, no, you don't bring yourself down. So there's like these different levels to the story, which is very cool. And just as a testament to Stephen King being an incredible writer.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can almost enter into this at any level you really want to or feel comfortable with. And every single time you rewatch or reread, you're going to probably find something new in a different area to relate to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love like, and this is another one to your point. Like I've talked about this on the podcast too, especially in arguments with Mattson, where I like layered films, right? Like I don't like just, I like some, but like to me, the layers that you're talking about, the fact that you're watching this film that ultimately is a bunch of friends doing some dumb shit, trying to go see a dead body that they overheard in a circumstance that somebody knew where it was. And then it builds from there. And like you have these different moments of, this isn't just four friends doing some dumb shit. This is four friends that are going through some things and are having some life experiences, even at the age of 12, that have already and will continue to define their life and aspects of their life for the foreseeable future, probably until the day they die. So it's like, it's really wild to me to see, and I really enjoy the character progression throughout, even though like there's no real life-changing things that happen here, right? Like to your point, there's hints, and that Chris had to continually push to get him to become a writer, right? It wasn't just this one moment where he tells him, dude, you're a great writer and you tell great stories. That doesn't change your trajectory like that. But a friend that sticks with, like he talks about at the end, like me and Chris, we hung out, for a long time, college, whatever. And that's how I ended up. He ends up, I'm sure you can fill in the blanks with your own imagination based on what you get. So that's, I think for me, like that whole dynamic of here at the core is these four friends going to spend a couple of days together away from the lying to their parents and going out and having fun. But then we get to see the real stories of each one of these characters, and they've all got some shit going on, right? Mm-hmm. So I love that. Like, and it's just so heartwarming and yet terrifying and disturbing and everything all at the same time.
So I will say, I like that. The knock I have against this, and it's a very small personal knock that I have, is the stereotypical archetypes.
Sure.
Because I hate Vern, Jerry O'Connell's character. Like, I hate him. And it's this archetype, right? You have Chris, who's the leader. You have Gordy, who's the main character. You have Teddy, who's the, lovable idiot. And then you got Vern, who's the annoying fat friend that nobody likes. Yeah. But, he's the misfit that fits in. And so it's, from the train scene, right? A little bit before that, but the train scene where it's just like, right? And just like, I'm leaving your ass.
Yeah.
There is no part of me that is going to stay behind you and push you on these train tracks. Like, no, I'm sorry, dude. When you're starting to crawl across, I'm leapfrogging you and just later, bro. Like, we just had this conversation about when's the next train coming. First of all, they're all moving way too slow across this bridge.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you've been on railroad terrestrials or how frequently you've been on railroad bridges and stuff like that, but those gaps in between the rails aren't that big. Like, you're not really gonna fall through. Book it.
Yeah.
Like, I am not waiting for this.
I'm not even starting, dude. Like,
I'm starting. I'm just booking it across.
I am not like, I'm not going across that bridge. I will go down the hill, swim across the fucking river, and climb back out. I am not walking across that bridge. It's not happening. And I'm not going the 5 miles, right? But I'm not crossing that. Nope, not a chance. And then, like, the train's coming. Hit me, fucker. Because I'm not running. I'm barely gonna be walking. So yeah, no, I'm with you. But I get what you're saying. Like, and yes, that character is the worst part of it. Because to your point, every annoying, almost little brother type arc that you're talking about, they fit into that character versus spreading the wealth a little bit of, and he has a problem and everybody shits on him for it and yells at him for it. And what everybody else has a problem and it's, full support. It's all right. Sorry, your dad's a dick, or, whatever it is. So anyway, I get that. And I'll definitely agree to that particular knock. I think some of my nostalgia and my enjoyment of the content of it, like, tends to push me past it. But I think I'm glad you brought it up, because it's true. Like, there's also some predictability level to this film, whether you want to admit it or not. Like, the core of the story is pretty fucking predictable. Mm-hmm. I think there's some interesting things that are like I think there's funny shit. Like, I always laugh my ass off when he faints at the fucking
leech on his dick.
The leech on his dick. Like, that shit makes me laugh. When they first when he shoots the gun on accident in the back of the store, and they're like, Jesus, and they go run up that shit. Like, all these little, because I can see, like I said, all of that, I can see my dumbass friends and I having had that happen. Like, that shit's hilarious to me. I think the other piece that I don't, if I'm going to criticize it at all, and again, this is all from personal experience, so someone else's experience could have been wildly different than mine. While we had, like, my friends and I had some, like, we would go do dumb shit, it was rare that we, especially at 12, 13 years old, it wasn't until like 15, 16, 17 that we started talking about really unfortunate dynamics at home and issues that we're dealing with. Like, for 12 and 13-year-olds to start talking about the really heavy, really serious topics that these guys go through, I'm like, can you really try to solve life's problems? Like, because at 12, and don't get me wrong, most 12, 13-year-olds are assholes. And so even my best friends, like, if they had just started fucking bitching and moaning about dad or, whatever, we'd have been like, shut the fuck up, and moved on. So, like, that's one thing. And I get that doesn't work for the movie. And again, there's probably a lot of people who have those friends that weren't complete and utter douchebags when they were 12 and 13 years old. But I do have a hard time with that piece where I'm like, yeah, you're fucking solving each other's problems at 12. Like, who does that?
Yeah, I was thinking about when you're saying that, and then I was like, no, because my only friend at 12 and 13 was Javier.
So. Hard to beat that dude's childhood, though, too. Like, I mean, he would tell you.
Oh, yeah. We weren't solving each other's problems.
No. I mean, you don't know how to. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the part where Chris, like, really stands out in this film. And, kudos to River Phoenix. Rip, sad that we lost that dude, because, I mean, even at this age, absolutely kills it as Chris and does a great job. And as believable as he is in this role, and, like, the fact that he would be the big brother of the group and kind of stand up and, kind of dive deep and push, like, I still kind of, there's moments where I go, he's like one in a million then, right? Like, so, because kids are just dicks. No matter how good a friend you are, we're dickheads when we're kids, especially boys. So that part for me, I'm like, okay. But again, man, and the performances, like, I think this is the other piece that when I talk about, we always joke about kids, and Javier, when he was on the podcast, he was joking, man, where do they find these fucking kids these days? But I'll tell you right now, even some of the terrible performances, like these kids, Kiefer Sutherland, like River Phoenix, I mean, even Corey Feldman at this point, like, these were some really good performances, like hella good acting from a bunch of teenage and younger kids that you're like, holy shit. Wow. Cause I'm enamored every time I watch it. Even today, like I watch it, I'm like, this is so good. They did so good in this film as far as the acting and like the interactions between the four of them, and then the interactions that they have with the older assholes. And so, yeah, just it's a masterclass on child acting. Unfortunately, we see with at least two of these people, like how child acting can have an impact on your adult life, and that lifestyle can be really damaging if you let it. But in the moment, holy shit, great acting.
100%.
So, poor River Phoenix. What a tragedy that one is. But it runs in the family because Joaquin as adult has done some really strange shit too. So obviously the child actor thing is, but I think we've seen a lot of examples of that, you know, child actors going off the rails.
Yeah. Throw a rock and you'll hit one.
Yeah. It's wild.
Yeah. The other thing that's hard for me with this movie, so maybe this is a me problem, but whenever you have like kids almost playing the adult role, right? So a lot of swearing, smoking, all those things. Like, I know it happens,
sure,
but it's always a little bit weird for me, right? Because I'm like, it's hard for me to relate to, right? Because I didn't start swearing until I was a little bit older. Then I haven't stopped since. So it's almost like, you know, finding the cookie later and then to being like, oh, hey, I like cookies, and just going way off into left field.
Yeah.
But then the type of movie, right? For me, this is Goonies.
Sure.
But it's not as fun as Goonies. Or as Goonies. And it's because of the story type, right? But even to the point where Corey Feldman's in both movies, playing the exact same character. And so that's the hard thing. Is like it's hard for me to come to grips sometimes with what this is, because there's so many different things, right? A movie like Goonies, adventure story. That's it. There's nothing else to it. This is an adventure story, but not really. It's more of a coming of age story, talking about the hardships of life. And so when I'm watching, sometimes I'm jumping around in what I'm trying to view. And then it just kind of jars me a little bit.
Sure.
Right. Because I'm like, okay, adventure story, we're going to go find a body. Right. And it's like, oh, no, there's actually a body. Like, it's not this kind of, you know, tall tale kind of dealio that you'd get. It's like, no, straight up, this dude got hit by a train and knocked off the tracks. And these kids are going to go do it. And they find this whole journey on the way. It's not, you know, hunting for one-eyed Willie's treasure. It's, hey, let's go find a dead body. And so it's that kind of more Stephen King aspect. We'll just put it that way, to where it's like, man, you're so good, but I fucking hate you. Like, with the shit that you put out. Like, it's hard for me to like you, even though it's so good, and I know it's so good, simply because it's you that's doing it, and this is your style of writing.
Sure. Yeah, there's not a lot of happy moments when it comes to Stephen King literature books. Yeah, he's kind of a depressing fucker, or a horror-filled fucker, but a little bit of both most of the time, all the time.
Well, horror is depressing, so it's kind of just
for you. You know, it's interesting that you say that too, because I always look at this a little bit on the flip side too, because I see movies now, like modern movies, and I say modern like this wasn't in the 1980s, but like newer films, and a great example that I think of is this film. When I look at oh god, now I forgot the damn movie. It was the Matt Damon, Ben Affleck? They directed it with the smart kid.
Oh, Goodwill Hunting.
So there's a lot of like aspects of Goodwill Hunting, like some of the dialogue specifically between Matt Damon's character and Ben Affleck's character, like the part where they're at the quarry and he's like, you need to get the fuck out of here. Like, if you're still here drinking beers with me and the guy, I'm going to kick your ass. Like, that moment to me, I think back and I go, they almost lifted that straight from Chris giving shit. And so I'm like, to me, I think about too, and Rob Reiner has come out and said that he thinks this is the best film he's ever directed. And Jesus Christ, Rob Reiner's made some great films. So to your point, yes, there's a lot of stereotypical pieces to this, and then there's a lot of like unbelievable and kind of depressing shit that also feels like it took from other successful stories and movies. But there are some aspects of this that I think movies recent and less recent have took right from this movie, because it, again, I think part of it is because it's so relatable. And I would imagine that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon saw this movie and went, fuck, we can relate to these knuckleheads, right? And so then some of that translated into a movie that they wrote piece by piece. And that scene always sticks out to me. Those two, and I was watching it again today going, fuck, they really just almost carbon copied
copy
that
paste
conversation. Yeah, like it's wild. And it works in both films. But like that to me, when I think about like an impactful movie, it's movies that influence future movies, right? And so when you think about Goonies and you think about Star Wars and you think about this movie and you think about Lean on Me, for example, like I keep thinking of all these 80s films that I'm like, there are so many copies or close related or similar type movies and stories that you're like, yeah, that's how, one of the ways that I'm like, yeah, that's good, because the first time they did it or something similar to it, you start to see that repetition in that story or similar. So yeah, good point. What's funny to me is, other than, and this is kind of a random thing, so when you think about the actors, as good as of a job as the kids do in this, especially the four main kids, not a single one of them had a very long career that what kept them in the A-list. So it's really interesting to me. Obviously, I think River Phoenix probably would have had a longer career if he hadn't had the tragedy of overdosing. But Corey Feldman struggled because, to your point, he plays the same character in every fucking movie. Will Wheaton had Star Trek, I guess, as an adult. And now he's just known as the guy that has cursed dice, like that fucks up dice in D&D. And then, the other one, oh God, Jerry O'Connell, like he had a couple of movies, but they were like those shitty, like American Pie style type that I was like, you're not that good. I think the only one that I can sit and say was really successful was Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah. But that's like, I mean, old acting family, right? Like
True.
His dad and brothers and families too, right? So it's like you're in it from the very beginning.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it's almost like that little bit of an unfair advantage, because like I could be wrong, but we're talking about the four main kids. Like, they are the actors in their family, right? It's not like mom and dad were actors, so they can navigate it. But you got Kiefer, dad's an actor, whole family's family of acting. So it's like they're gonna do a better job of getting your kid better movies, making sure they're doing okay, understanding the business. Whereas parents who don't come from it have a tendency to like push, right? Like, do this, go, 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 go. You got to do this to make it. And on the on the other side, it's like, hey, we're gonna figure this out, type of a thing, and do it in a better way for you.
That's true. Good point. All right, should we rate this thing?
Let's do it.
Man, 90-minute movies, they make for short recordings,
right?
This is mine. I'm gonna, gosh, this one's so tough for me because like it's so good and it's one of my favorites, but there are problems, anyway. So I'm gonna give it a 4. I think it's up there. I think it's one of those films that I will always go back to as far as like a coming of age story, something that I can watch and enjoy these kids and enjoy the stories and the darkness of the film, and yet the support that they give each other. I think the dialogue's great. I think it's got funny parts. It's got super serious parts. It's got really heavy parts, and all together it's acted very well. So, so 4 for me, and I'll definitely watch it again.
Sweet. So I'm gonna go a little bit lower than you and say 3.5. And it's a tricky 3.5 because it's one of those things where it's good. I like it. It's hard for me to ever say, hey, I want to go watch Stand By Me, because of how heavy it does get. And then throw that on top, like I don't like Vern, and as funny, or not really funny, but as essential as the lard ass story is, like I'm almost like, hey, I can cut this movie down by 15 minutes.
Sure.
But it's that essential need for the development of Gordy. So it's like it's got to be in there, but at the same time, I'm also like, yeah, Stephen King fucking wrote that part. Fuck that guy. But I mean, I would also say that I could have done with a little bit more of grown up Gordy, right? Because you get a little bit at the beginning, you get a little bit at the end, but the kind of writing the story, if you did one or two more kind of little blips in the middle of it, I think I would have enjoyed that a little bit more. But it's probably not in the book. I've never read the book, so it's probably not in the book, and Stephen King would have been mad if that happened. So, but yeah, 3.5 for me. And I do watch this movie, but it's never on my list of, hey, you know what, I'm going to go watch this one.
Sure. Yeah, it's a short story. It's not like, it's one of his very short stories. So like there's a lot of embellishment in the film compared to the book, but a very good story too, but it's just one of his shorter ones. But sweet. Well, there it is. Yeah. Tell everybody where they can find us, my friend.
Happy to, JJ. So we are done with July, guys. It's another month in the books, and there's 90 minutes or less movies done. Special thanks to our patrons, Richard, Mel Brooks, and Alan Smithy with 2 E's for coming in clutch with this pick. Patreon's the place to be, guys, if you guys want to get involved in the content that we do put out. It's all selected by Patreons, and then from there, we kind of go a little bit of giving topics, or not really topics, but movies that go within topics for you guys. So 100% Patreon picked content, as well as extra episodes on the Patreon. I think we're going to be up to about 160 when this goes out. So there's a lot of extra What's Our Verdict content out there for you guys. If you guys are interested, if that's your thing, Patreon's a place to be. With that, I'll kick it back to our king, JJ, the mountain of a man himself.
I feel like I need some coconuts right now. Thanks, Alec. Yeah, go check us out. And thanks again to our sponsor, Manscaped. We appreciate it. And as always, we appreciate you guys turning in. And with that, we'll catch you on the next one.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Cinemagic Hour.
Whoa!